That's our episode. No battles, no mecha, no nothing. Just like
What?
Just a lot of
100%.
feels.
God, what is up with that? It's enough to make you start thinking this is a real show.
I feel like more people got hurt in this episode than
Yeah,
the ones
than
with the
most of the
battles.
combats.
Welcome to the Macross Doctor Recap Show, episode 16. This is EXO, along with the magical girl that won't let Snow Day get in the way of her birthday, Celia Rose,
Hello.
and our mecha expert that will unbox your gifts before you even get in the door, Chad.
Hey, everybody.
Okay, episode 16, Reluctant Birthday. All right, so the episode opens with the last part that we had on the last episode, and it's Robert Kino talking to the Delta Squad. He revealed something about Hayate's dad.
Yeah, so that was actually kind of weird. In the after credit scene in the prior episode, it was Kino was just so shocked, like, what are you doing with the son of that man? And so when we get the continuation of that in this episode, he's like, what are you doing? And then, never mind. It's nothing. Like he literally says, nandamo nai. And I'm like, wait a minute. You just made this big show in front of Arid and Hayate, and then suddenly, it's no big deal, and then they just wheel him out. And I'm like, wait, what?
Exit screen right.
Basically, yeah. Like, I know they have to drop the information somehow, but it was just such a strange shift.
I always hate when shows do that, actually. It's one of the things that draws attention to the fact that what you're watching is fiction, which I always really dislike. I wish they wouldn't do it, but it's like, in every show, like so many shows, like even the best of it, the best of any sort of storytelling can sometimes, fall prey to this sort of thing. But it's just like you create dramatic tension or audience desire to see more of the story play out by ending a conversation in like the middle of it. It's like when Robert Kino sort of tries to dismiss everything and gets wheeled out. It's like, no, that conversation would never end like that. Any normal human being would have, like, grabbed him by the neck and shook him until he answered his question after dropping like a carrot like that. Right? It's just not how real conversations play out. So I feel like the anime drew attention to itself. That the fact that it's like a piece of fiction with that sort of scene. Even if you're not one of the main characters involved in the conversation, all the other supporting characters would have said something at that point. They would have said, like, wait a minute, this is not the end of the conversation, dude. You're gonna have to give a little bit more than that. You just
Especially
like,
for Hayate.
yeah, like especially for Hayate, like that's part of his personality. Like he wouldn't let it go. Right. And you can clearly see, like, later in the episode, he doesn't. He's already trying to pry things out of Arid.
I was actually okay with the Robert Kino part, where I think I've been in conversations where I say something like, hey, wait a minute, didn't you? And then kind of look at the other person, you're like, ugh, never mind, But the thing that I didn't like is at the end where Zared's kind of like, well, you didn't ask. And then Hayate was
He
like,
didn't ask.
don't give me that shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like Hayate
And
calls
then
him
it
on
cuts.
its
That's the part that bugged me. It's like, wait, there's more to that conversation.
exactly, yeah.
And we're to assume that there wasn't. So the Robert Kino part I was okay with.
Well, maybe we're to assume that there was, but like it didn't
Yeah,
go the way that we want it to go or something like that. But it's just
it's a cheat.
it's yeah, it's a
Exactly.
cheat. It's a writer's cheat, and it creates a false sense of tension and whatnot, and just because of
Yeah.
just because of the omission, I guess, what's actually
Cool.
happening. So
So in the next scene, we see Freya in the Nyan uniform. I was going to say costume. She's helping out in the restaurant in place of Mariana. Yeah, they killed her off just so Freya could wear the uniform.
That's a really horrible reason to get rid of a character. Especially when you consider the way she like went out too, where she died with a wall of water rammed into her after
Yeah.
the bomb went off. I mean, for the sake of a costume, it's a little extreme.
Just for the sake of a statue. And
God.
they're totally gonna sell the exact same statue that they sold as Ronka, and they're just gonna replace it with a Freya head, a
Okay.
retool.
it's awful.
It is awful. It's okay. Nobody's offended. They're fictional characters.
I guess, yeah. They're not real, so no one can be offended.
So Machina mentions that it's gonna be Freya's birthday, right? Yeah, so they decide to throw Freya a birthday party. When they're saying, "Oh, we're gonna have a surprise party. Are you in?" And then everybody's like, "Yes, yes." And then Mirage is like,
And it made me like really sad for Mirage. Okay, but let's be real though. It's not as bad as Mikumo, who's all like, I just wanted to see what it was like. No one ever celebrated my birthday. Yeah, Mirage is definitely the reluctant one in this episode.
And then the scene after is a meeting between the heads of the Delta team. It's Captain Arad, Johnson, Kaname, and Mikumo. They're thinking of striking at, well, not striking, but they want to go check out the structures that the Windermereans left, hoping that they could use it for themselves. And now would be the right time to do it since Heinz is at a weakened state, or so they think.
Mikumo has this plan. She was talking about how the last time there was like an incident with Heinz, how that she contacted him somehow through the protoculture ruins.
Mhm.
And so I was thinking that her plan is to, I guess maybe do that again, or like, I'm not even sure what her plan is. She's just got some sort of idea about how they're going to deal with him next time he uses his song or something. And I'm not really sure exactly what's going on there.
It's a reveal for Mikumo's idea that she cryptically talked about in the past episode.
Yeah.
Where she's all like, I have an idea. And her idea is she wants to investigate those structures to see if they can use them, since the
Oh,
Windstinger
okay.
was using them.
All
And if
right.
they can
Yeah.
use them before Heinz fully recovers, because she thinks that he overexerted himself in their last foray, since his voice was able to reach farther than the cluster. And they have plans to go out past the cluster.
Yeah.
And she wants to take advantage of those downtimes that he has. She's noticed that pattern with the Windermereans already.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Operation Mysterious Venus.
Yeah, again, like everything is like always so shrouded in this mystery.
And it doesn't help that Mikumo just kind of talks in like a
Cryptically as well.
mysterious.
Yeah.
Even when she's asking about, like, when Kaname asks her, like, are you gonna go to the birthday party? And she's like, I'll
Yeah.
give it some thought. And I'm like, just say you're going.
What kind
You're
of thought?
totally
Yeah,
showing
what
up.
kind of answer is
Everybody knows
that?
you're gonna be
Yeah.
there. Well, since we're talking about the structures, let's skip ahead. We're gonna skip the beginning of the shopping part. Let's talk about the Windermereans and how the Delta team is banking on the fact that Heinz is weakened. But later on, we see that Heinz is pushing to act now. So Heinz, Roy, and Keith are talking in his totally rad throne room um, with the massive wings. I was like, whoa, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
You know?
It's so weird that the scene before that, they're saying Captain Johnson was mentioning how he's so surprised that such a small colony world like Windermere would be so audacious as to take on the new unified spacey and new unified government and everything.
Yeah.
Once that scene ends, you immediately transition to a scene of the Windermereans talking about it, and they have this throne room that looks like it's designed the Emperor from Star Wars. It's this massive like facility and just this huge throne. It's the most ridiculous throne you've ever seen.
Second most ridiculous throne you've ever seen, next to the Iron
Next
Throne.
to the Iron Throne.
Yeah.
God. Well, it is definitely one of my favorite scenery layouts of this episode. Like, I remember taking a screen cap of it just because that scene in particular is just laid out really well. And even the color palette's just really nice. There were a lot of really nice scenery layouts in this episode, by the way.
This episode, yeah.
But for Windermere, I see what they're doing, where Heinz is like, yes, I must do this. But part of me that feels not pity, but just I have this feeling in my stomach that Heinz is just spitting back the rhetoric that Royd has been telling him.
Yeah.
When he's talking to them and he's like, I must continue onwards so that we can, free the rest of the galaxy. And I'm like, oh, you poor baby. I don't even think you know the implications of what you're saying and what that
Yeah.
means for you as a ruler. I mean, he is the prince and probably has knowledge of what it means to be king and has to be up to date on political affairs, but he's also only like 10. So, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Poor Heinz. I think he's destined to go throughout the series being completely manipulated by everyone around him.
Yeah, he just especially seems like a pawn in this
Yes.
scene when he's saying the stuff that Royd has been saying this entire time back to Royd, and Royd is like,
Yeah.
yes, of course, your highness. And I'm like, oh, you dirty bastard.
Poor little guy.
It's his naivety, man. Like, that naivete that he has, because he's so young and doesn't fully understand everything. Royd is taking full advantage of it, and it's especially clear in this scene.
He needs lessons from Lady Mormont.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in the next scene, we see the rest of the knights talking amongst themselves. Of course, the young guys are totally gung ho about taking over the whole galaxy, not just the cluster. Quamzim is wondering what the White Knight thinks of all this. Of course, Herman has the answer, and the answer is Keith drinking apple juice.
It did look like a L'Oreal commercial a little bit, didn't it? Like if you didn't have subs and
It
you
looked
didn't
like a
speak
commercial,
Japanese.
period. Yeah, it was almost shot like a parody of a commercial. You have this like, this kid drinking this apple juice. It looked like it'd be like an ad for any like ridiculous company selling their product. It's
Windermere and Gatorade.
yeah, Wyndham, yeah, real knights of the kingdom drink apple juice. It's like it's a good sequence that gives us a little bit more, I guess, not much insight, but I guess it sort of tells us a little bit more about like why Keith and Royd kind of went their own ways, I guess. But yeah, so it's a good sequence, short, brief, does its own thing.
I find it interesting that like the twins were celebrating the turning their wings black when in the prior episode about Windermere, they were using that phrase to talk about like turns of opinion. Like your wings, turn from white to black, and usually like turning your opinion in a negative aspect. But then in this one, the twins are like, "Yes, we were right, turning our wings black for the sake of the kingdom," type of thing.
Well, I think that's two
And I'm
different
like,
things. I mean, I think
huh.
they're complaining about like what sacrifice of their honor they had to
Yeah.
make in order for the
Mhm.
kingdom, but they think that it's worth it.
That's pretty much it for Windermere in this episode. I actually forgot that there was a Windermere scene. So going back to the shopping with Mirage and Hayate, they're at the mall and Hayate's trying to figure out what to buy Freya. And then we see Machina, Ray, and Chuck. I don't know if they followed them or they just ran into them by accident.
They're following them.
I think they're following. Yeah, given that this is Machina we're talking about, I'm almost certain that they followed them.
Okay, we'll just say that they follow them. Yeah, and they start having this funny dialogue in place of trying to guess what they're actually saying, and it was actually a really funny scene.
Yeah, it was good. I guess Hayate and Mirage are just. I guess this is where something sort of happens here, where Mirage just like comes out and says something right, spot on. Just asking, do you have feelings for, Freya? And it's just like, and Hayate is actually really taken aback by it, just the audacity of the statement. And he's like, wow, like, where is this coming from? He says, right? It's like, why are you asking about that? And then she starts getting pretty heavy, like just questioning him about his relationship with Freya. And it's actually funny because, in a weird sort of way, it looks like Hayate wasn't even thinking along those lines before, but
Mhm.
because now Mirage has mentioned it and put it to him that way, you can actually see him throughout the scene start to like consider the idea for the first time.
Yeah,
It's like Mirage's own like insecurity about Hayate maybe having a relationship with Freya actually may have created one that wasn't there before.
yeah, and Mirage could have totally turned it around because he said something like, "Are you talking from experience?"
And yeah, she says, "Well, of course I wouldn't," sort of thing.
I have other guys ask me to drinks, but I've never really had that type of
Oh
experience.
my God. Yeah, that was sad.
I love what Machina said, like this guy's denser than a black hole.
Oh God, I love that. I laughed out loud at that piece of dialogue, right? Because he just like goes on to like some other thing. It's like here she is like giving him an invitation to invite her out, right?
Yeah.
Talking like Mirage is saying, I never get invited, I so rarely get invited, or maybe once or twice or something like that. And it's like a perfect opening for him to invite her out to go do something. And he's like, oh yeah, look at this thing here. He's just like completely clueless. And yeah, Machina comments he's like as dense as a black hole. It's just there was oh my God, that was such a good line of dialogue. I was like so surprised by it. I'm like, that's the perfect line.
Well, I think good on Mirage for taking the first step and just asking.
Yeah.
I mean, this is episode 16. We've had 15 episodes of just Freya and Mirage developing crushes on Hayate and not even admitting it to themselves that they have crushes
Uh-huh.
on Hayate. And then finally she just goes out there and says, "Do you like her?" And Hayate's like, "Well, I don't know. I mean, he's even confused by it, which was actually what I liked just as much, was that we finally have some sort of emotional reaction from Hayate in this triangle.
Yep.
Where he's like, well, she's not my friend, but we're not lovers, but I guess like a companion, like just kind of going through the different terms that you can use with the other person in the relationship you're in, depending on like what type of relationship that is. And eventually even he can't really come to a conclusion on it. He just says that Freya's really fun to have around and like it's never boring when he spends time with her. But definitely good on Mirage for getting that started and basically asking the question that the entire audience has been wanting to ask themselves. I also really liked that Makina, Reina, and Chuck were doing exactly what the audience has been doing this whole time, which is watching scenes with characters from our triangle with like bated breath and just like watching for some sort of romantic development. Waiting for it to happen, and
Yeah.
even like making up dialogue while they're like reading their lips, like, oh, look at this, isn't it lovely? No, it's not cute. Like it was just great. Oh my gosh, I thought it was great that they're doing exactly what the audience has been doing this entire time. And I liked their disguises, like Makina wearing a pair of glasses while she has a pair of glasses on her head. Her lenses, like the bow that sticks up are the lenses of her glasses that she wears when
Uh,
she's like scanning mechs and stuff. So she's wearing that on her head, but then she's wearing a separate pair of glasses for her quote unquote disguise. And then Chuck's got a baseball cap, which does very little to disguise him. Raina is not wearing any disguise at all. She's just there.
she's holding something though. She's behind this big. Was it like a stuffed animal or
They
something?
were yeah, they were hiding behind stuffed animals. I just thought it was great that like Makina and Chuck were like disguise, and Raina just doesn't even try. She just shows up. That was excellent. And Mirage using Pinterest, like that was just little things about this scene that just made me happy, and that I really liked about it. The line denser than a black hole was spot on, and then Raina's follow up, love is cruel. Just excellent ways to end that sequence. When Freya sings a song and Hayate like senses it and his vision goes for a minute.
But then he just says like, "Oh, I must be hungry." I'm wondering, is he aware that it's Freya's singing that's doing that to him?
I think
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah, he just tells Mirage that so that she doesn't like worry about him, I think.
Their connection has been like well established in the series now. But I think this is a little bit different in that I don't think that they were necessarily trying to connect. Like when they synchronize in the previous episodes, it's because they're actively trying to like synchronize with each other and like uh, read the wind and all the rest of that stuff that they get from their exchange of like fold waves and whatnot between each other, right? So this time it's like neither of them was necessarily reaching out to the other, but it just kind of happened naturally. Which might be like a meta commentary on their, the possibility of like a romantic relationship,
Hmm.
right? So it might be like,
Yeah.
oh, they're in each other's thoughts even when they're not thinking about each other consciously. So yeah, so I thought it was good. It was another way to also like develop the triangle as well, right? To get it going. And
Yes.
also, I think it was a clever script way to get Hayate more aware of the fact that there is the possibilities of relationships going on between these characters.
Actually, what I thought was neat is that they used it kind of as a segue into chipping away a little bit at Mikumo's mystery. Because when Freya's singing the song and like Hayate hears
Hmm.
it, and then it cuts back to Freya, and Mikumo joins her and starts talking about Windermere. And of course, being Mikumo, she speaks very cryptically about it, be like, ah, yes, the wind on Windermere is bitingly cold. Just not really divulging Freya of a lot of information. Um, but then she asks her, have you ever sung on that stage on Windermere? So she's been to Windermere before.
Does she remember it, or is that something that just coming back through hazy memory?
I think that might have been what we were seeing in that flashback sequence. I think it was in episode 14 or
Hmm.
13. I can't remember. But it was the one where she's like in the long gown and she's got like the weird rainbow energy swirls like on her body. And she's singing Heinz's Wind song in front of a protoculture structure.
I think that's the beginning of 14.
Yeah, there was that flashback, and well, sort of flashback. She questions if it's a dream because
Yeah.
everything she says is cryptic, but but like she's been to Windermere before, and her saying this stuff to Freya, like even Freya's surprised, like, what? You've been to Windermere? And Mikumo doesn't even answer her, doesn't even give her an answer
Of course
as to
not.
whether
Yeah.
to confirm whether or not she's been to Windermere. But now I've got my hopes up that the sequence we saw with her with the long dress and the rainbow swirls was a thing that actually happened.
So it wasn't a vision, it was more of a memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's becoming more and more apparent that that's something that did happen. Maybe not exactly the way Mikumo remembers it. Maybe it's a past life, or she's actually a red witch, and she's older than we think.
That's what the jewel in her hair is.
Yeah, that
It's just not going to stop.
it's not gonna stop.
But for real though, like now I'm starting to think that Mikomo actually has like a closer connection to the protoculture than I thought initially because of what she
Yeah, I think
said
so.
and then that particular sequence. I might be getting a little too excited that this character is finally seeing a little bit more development and a little bit more unveiling of her mystery after all this time.
I actually didn't interpret it as a memory sort of thing. So this is kind of like a new revelation to me, but it does actually make a little bit more sense. And I mean, at some point we gotta find out a little bit more about this character too, right? So I like the idea that maybe this is a memory because it starts to make a little bit more sense and gives some at least some sort of I don't know context or history for Mikumo that we don't yet have. She's always so mysterious all the time. Eventually, the mystery can only push the narrative so far, and the audience's patience as well. Eventually, we have to learn something about Mikumo in order to stay invested in the character. Otherwise, the routine will just become that, routine. So I think it's a good interpretation of that particular thing. That's like it's her memories, and so that lets us know that she's actually had exposure to this, and yeah, for whatever reason, I'm still gonna we still don't know what that is or why she would be there. And then the whole Windermere thing. This is like another example this episode of like characters having like crucial pieces of information that they long ago should have divulged to all the other characters involved in this story, but just for some reason didn't. It's like Arad knows Hayate's father. And it's just like, that was a pretty important piece of information, don't you think? That you should have mentioned to somebody, especially like Hayate, before now.
And
And
how casually he brushes it off too, like you should have
yeah,
asked me.
yeah, and
The
like how
worst.
Mikumo, like it's revealed that Mikumo has been to Windermere, and it's like, yeah, you probably should have mentioned that before now, don't you think? You know?
I
Yeah,
don't think she
it's.
knew though. I don't think she's aware of
Oh,
like I said
you
last
think that she's
episode.
becoming like aware of these things at the same time?
Yeah,
Like she. Oh, okay.
on our last show, I was like, I think Mikumo's mysterious to
To
herself,
herself. Yeah, I remember you saying that. Yeah.
and she wasn't sure. She was the one that said, "Is this a dream?" She wasn't sure whether it was a dream or a memory.
You can't really trust anything Mikumo says anyway. He's always talking in cryptic ways, and she's always being intentionally obscure.
We'll start calling her Crypto, like Superman's dog. So we go back to the couple, Mirage and Hayate, and Hayate buys her ice cream, and they start to talk about Hayate's dad and how weird it was that he's sort of following his path, and that kind of bugged Mirage. She's saying that he's not following his dad's path because he found it on his own.
I guess he's talking about like all the different things that he's done and how he's never really found uh, anything that was like an occupation, I guess, that like satisfied him. Yeah, I guess he talks about his dad specifically. But yeah, it's interesting actually. I mean, Ard revealed earlier that his dad was a pilot, which is something of a revelation. And then like Ard says something to the effect of, "But he was what are the specific phrase that he says about him? He was too nice for his own good, or something like that, or too good for his
Yeah.
own."
At the very end, at the end of the episode, he says that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's like it again. It like says something about the fact that he was maybe like convinced or became a part of something. Like talking about Hayate's father here, that he was like he felt so much for this particular group of people, probably the Windermerians, if we're putting two and two together here. Yeah, and then just kind of felt sorry for them and took action or something like that to help them out, and that's what ended up causing such a stir among the new UN Spacey and their the people who know him and whatnot, right? So yeah, just to bring that back to Hayate, I think he's starting to maybe to get a little bit more of a handle on who his father was, because he even admits to Mirage, I think, during this conversation that he doesn't really know him, and he's like learning all this stuff about him like now, only like years later. Yeah, it's a pretty good piece of character development. At least it pushed that forward a little bit more. Although we still have like way too many unknowns.
That was very smooth of Mirage to be like, "So, hey, about your dad," to like fill the awkward silence after they started eating their ice cream. I guess that's kind of hard to come back from. Do you have feelings for Freya? And then just kind of sitting on the park bench, like, what do we talk about now? Oh, hey, Hayate, that was a pretty big piece of information. Let's talk about your dad. It was very smooth. They're definitely building up a lot for Wright Immelman, though, and the big reveal around him. Because even just after that short sequence where Hayate was talking about his dad, and feeling just very strange about how he's been connected to his father and really taking a lot of the same steps that he has, Robert, Kino, and Arid, it leads into their scene next, and where he shows Robert Kino the video that Roy revealed during the live stream of the coronation. And both of them are like, we cannot tell Hayate. So clearly there's something very big around Wright Immelman that Hayate's not supposed to know yet and is probably going to find out when it's not an opportune moment, and it's going to be a big reveal for the audience.
There was really this kind of like fear in Hayate right after he found out that his dad might have done something that not everybody approves of. He was kind of like scared that his path was following his dad's, and Mirage just tried really hard to make him feel better about it. She was just like, no, you wanted to become a pilot before you found out that your dad was a pilot. And I thought that was like a sweet moment between them.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
small but sweet. Well, to me, all signs point to Wright Immelman dropping the bomb. If that's true, it'd be interesting if the Knights find out and how they would try to go after Hayate at that point. If it's true, that's something I'd be looking forward to. Like extreme hate for your enemy.
Yeah.
I don't know if he dropped the bomb though. Mostly, and it is based on like literally one line, but where Arad said he's too kind for his own good.
Yeah.
I don't know if someone that he describes that way would be able to would follow the order to drop a bomb like that.
Yeah, it all
Yeah.
depends on what kind of convictions Wright Immelman has. Or maybe he was the one that's supposed to do it, and maybe he refused. We'll see. It's too cryptic right now to even make a full guess.
God, everything's so cryptic in this episode.
So cryptic. But then Hayate sees the falling stars in the fake sky. He just runs off. Mysteriously, he just runs off. Let's go on to the party, and they're preparing for it. And Mirage is in charge of course, she's taking charge of the whole operation, and she's looking at Arid like, stop slacking off. You're not doing anything.
Yeah, that was neat.
Hayate's missing. That's what everybody's kind of like asking. Where's this guy at? Freya approaches the restaurant and everything's dark, and she's wondering why. It's a surprise party. They surprise her. The first thing she asks is, where's Hayate?
He's busy taking care of his last minute gift idea.
Yeah.
God, this was actually, I really liked the surprise party. Freya apparently forgot her own birthday in everything that's been going on. So clearly she hasn't been keeping track of time, period. But I thought the emotionality that Minori Suzuki brought to that scene was just really, really good. Because if you look at it, they're singing her happy birthday, and yes, they surprise her with a birthday party, and it could have taken like more of a happy, cheerful vibe, kind of like the welcome party that they had for Hayate and Freya in the beginning of the series, where it was just like, we're happy, we're having fun together. But this was something that really meant a lot to Freya, because there were people who were thinking about her, when she's really at a point where she's not really thinking about herself because of the greater problems that are going on, and that they made that effort to do that for her and to celebrate her birthday. And even Mikumo shows up, even after she cryptically says, I'll give it some thought. And then she shows up and leads the birthday song, which I think is really funny that she went through the effort of seeming mysterious and planned on showing up the whole time. But what I thought was great, if you listen to the birthday song, everybody's singing. Like even Chuck and, well, Ara didn't have any mouth flaps, so he wasn't singing, but even Chuck was singing with everybody. So that was just really neat. And actually it gives you a lead in into Freya's backstory as a child. When she's thanking everybody for the party, and she lost her parents at a really young age, and really found comfort and happiness in music, and basically reiterating what she had talked about before, when everyone was talking about how Rognum was important to them, except this time Freya saying that the people who were there celebrating with her are important, and that she was very thankful to have them. It was a great scene. I loved it. I teared up. I didn't cry, but I teared up.
Yeah, I agree. It was a good scene actually. The feels definitely came out in it as well. Everybody's sort of like working the dialogue and the just the relationships are all working, the music and just the fact that I think Freya also has this moment where she mentions that she's reached her midlife at 15 years
Yeah.
old, which is also something that just like that hits both the character, some of the characters like Hayate. We have a reaction shot from Hayate, and he's very saddened by that as well. But I think the audience is the one that's meant to be hit the hardest by that fact. Just like here's this 15-year-old girl doing what she loves to do in life, which is sing. It's all she wants to do and stuff, but she's gonna die really, really young. And it's like sort of a sobering and tragic sort of situation to think about. But then sort of reminds you of what you're doing. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everything, starting with this scene and everything towards the end, was written really well to a T. Because it just you kind of just forget about like everything else that's happened before, and you're just kind of like in this birthday party, and you're enjoying it along with the show itself. And then at the end of the speech, Hayate just gives Freya that trademark wink of his. They're about to start the party, and one of the kids notices the snow outside, and that brings out more of the feels because that's something that somebody like Freya would enjoy. And then she heads out, and everybody's playing in the snow. We have this awesome scene where they kind of like draw Freya and Hayate, especially when they're staring at each other, especially good with the lighting and
yeah, I noticed.
just
Yeah,
it was like every line was perfect. She looked really good, and he looked really good, and everything's going well in contrast to what Mirage is feeling.
Yeah, I love the snow sequence. That was just, for one thing, Hayate's gift is like super thoughtful. And I really appreciate that because a lot of the times we really get this Hayate that like, I mean, and not to say that he's, selfish or anything, but he's just unaware and more aloof. But, when the time calls for it, he really is a thoughtful person. Whether or not there were romantic feelings involved or not when he came up with his idea, it struck him that Freya would miss the snow back on Windermere, which is why he went to go get it for her. Just to kind of bring that element of home to her when she can't be home. And I really appreciated that. And I love the kids' reaction. Chuck's brothers and sisters, and they're like, "It's the first time I've seen snow. Oh my gosh!" And they're
yeah, they
playing in it. That was awesome.
yeah they collectively lose their minds. I think because it's just something that they've never enjoyed before.
Yeah, and there was even like, so it's not supposed to be comedic, but I kind of laughed at it because Hayate, like, after Freya thanks him for the present and she's all excited about it, and he's all like, "Your rune's glowing," like teasing her, and he goes to touch it, and because it usually gets a rise out of her, but it doesn't work this time. She just
Mhm.
kind of has this like dreamy look on her face, and then the look Hayate makes after that is just, it made me laugh because he just looked really confused, like that's not the reaction I was anticipating, type of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like an important scene. It almost seems like she was telling him, like, go ahead, touch my rune. Like, I'm ready for it or something like that. And it kind of like takes him aback. Wait a minute. Whoa, you're supposed to be pulling it away. But it was just like so bright, and then it rises towards his finger.
How lewd in public.
Yeah, but it was really touching. Like, there was two reactions in this scene. It was that one where he kind of like gets serious when he's about to touch her rune, and then there was a scene in the snow fight where she's kind of like running away
Yeah,
from
and
him.
he like reaches out to her or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So I think this is actually a direct result of what I think. Well, it's a combination. I think it's number one. I think it's a direct result of like Mirage's own insecurity and what she got. Like she actually put like Hayate on a path towards maybe thinking more about Freya, or at least framed Freya in that light, which is, like I said, extremely ironic given the fact that she doesn't want Freya to get with Hayate because she does. So, like I said earlier in the episode, it's like she's the architect of her own demise in some respects here. But then it's also without Mirage in the situation, you can also see that Hayate is maybe starting to consider things a little bit differently than he was before. Maybe, Mirage might have been the catalyst, or maybe it was just the moment. He was in the moment and was just feeling some of the same things that Freya was feeling. That's the other thing too. Like, because they have such a connection, and apparently they can communicate each other's thoughts or feelings or whatever through their fold waves. And maybe he might sense that there's more of a connection or something that he's missing with Freya. He's taking the first steps towards beginning to explore the idea of it. So as a result, he comes across as kind of awkward and not very sure of himself. He's like, do I want to reach out and touch her? You guys had mentioned earlier here how you were talking about the animation quality of the close-ups between Freya and Hayate. And I was thinking, yeah, it was just like they were really emphasizing the fact that these two characters might actually kiss like right now. I mean, you knew it wasn't going to happen because it's too early in the series and too early in the relationship for these three characters, but the animation made you feel that way. Like, I don't know if you guys felt that way when you watched it either, but I sure did. I almost got the impression like we were being trolled, like we were being teased. It's like, oh God, look at them, the two of them, and how beautifully animated this is. And wouldn't it be great if they just reach out and kiss right now? Yeah, wouldn't it? Sort of thing. That's the interpretation I have of the animation in that scene for sure.
Yeah, I also got that same sense of like a teasing feeling,
Yes.
because the triangle's finally like moving a little bit. I don't even know if it's moving forward, but it's just there's some movement finally. And because we finally got that movement, now they're like, hey, what if, but we're not actually going to do anything about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a kind of, I don't know if it's a meme, but there's a comment that everybody's saying on the Delta page. Mirage ship has sunk. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Oh.
It's too early, guys.
no, it's a total. You're right. It's a troll, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we don't know, and I actually like the fact that they're pointing it towards one way, and it's way too early for us to know, right? But it's fun. I mean, this is where the fun comes in. Even though we're staring at Mirage and she's totally miserable, this is when the fun starts.
Well, it will spur her on. I think that's the thing, right? Like what she's
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully,
feeling right now will, like, I'm hoping will spur her to action. Actually, in many ways, I think Mirage has a similar character arc to Misa in the original SDF Macross
Yeah, that's what it reminded me
series.
of too.
Just this whole episode, the way she reacts and the way she talks about herself, and just the way she's a very professional, again, like extremely competent, very talented professional at what she does, yet she stumbles and falls around like intimate or private relationships, right? Also the fact that she's starting to wallow a little bit in her own self-pity for the fact that things appear to be going well between Hayate and Freya, but she can't seem to put herself on the right track as far as the relationship is.
Yeah. Actually, like prior to this episode, I really didn't have like a preference for how this triangle was going to turn out, because there wasn't very much development to really like say one way or the other, which would, I guess, be a more natural end to it. And I even remember tweeting out before the end of the episode, I don't care who ends up with who, as long as we have some good development towards it. Like the girls could get together for all I care,
yeah.
and
I mean,
as
yeah.
long as the as long as the development was there to make it like it was well written and it felt like good natural character development, then I'd be behind it. But Mirage's reaction at the end after she asks Hayate, like, do you like Freya? And Hayate's unsure himself, but clearly Mirage's feelings, and then how sad she is because Hayate and Freya just have this little moment of intimacy, even if it's not necessarily a romantic moment. I'm just like, oh, you poor baby. Like, it made me really want to root for Mirage in that moment.
You seem like a Mirage shipper to me.
I just really like her. Not that
I
like,
like them both.
not that like I'll be like, I won't be like furious if Freya wins in the way that like the Alto Ronca Cheryl thing went down for Frontier, where it was almost a bloodbath. But it just won't be like my favorite. Kind of like I mean, I've only seen Do You Remember Love, but that's kind of how I feel about like Hikaru, Minmay, and Misa. Yes, I like Minmay, but I'm also not upset that Misa and Hikaru got together.
Mhm.
So, kind of like that. But I would really like Mirage to get somewhere in this show at the very least.
That's one of my favorite things about the first series, because the whole time you're kind of like rooting for Hikaru to hook up because he's trying so hard to hook up with Minmay, who's never really like paid attention to him, or she knows, but she's straight out told him that I'm concentrating on this thing, and you're my friend. When Misa started coming into the picture, I've never really seen that in a story before. It was new to me to have like another option instead of just having one guy and one girl as the main love interest in a show. So it's one of the things that solidified how good SDF Macross is for me. But I wouldn't be offended if they pulled a twist on this show. Like I like Freya enough to see them hooking up at the end. Also, it'd be a nice change because, like everybody says, it's always been the more mature, responsible girl that wins the triangle.
I wonder why. I don't know.
It's funny though. This is something that I was talking to Sean Salisbury about. He mentioned something that Mirage is the one with order, and Freya represents chaos. But then I was thinking, yeah, on the outside. But if you really look at them on the inside, it's the opposite. It's Freya that's at peace with herself and who she is, even though the whole 30-year thing, she's at peace with that. But Mirage is a lot of conflict inside. She has more chaos than Freya within her.
Oh yeah.
Total opposites externally and internally. So interesting.
Yeah.
I'm liking the show a lot because if you really like think about it, it's a lot deeper than it leads on to be. It's not just a magical girl show, people.
And even my favorite ship has already sailed. I mean, Machina and Reina are like the only happy couple in this show. And they've sailed from day one.
Just kind of interesting. I don't know if that says much about relationships in the Macross universe because those two are like probably the most immature of all the other characters in the show as well.
Yeah,
Right?
well, that's why they deserve each other so much. They're the perfect couple. Well, what do you guys think about the whole Arad?
Oh, that was sad.
Yeah, that little sequence, and there was all it was just like a short little sequence with the two of them just on I guess the wherever that was, on the outside patio or something like that, and they just exchanged this brief look, but the music is telling you that there's something else going on there, and so is the animation itself, right? They're at least they're hinting at the fact that there might be more to this relationship. There might actually be more to it, like Machina suspected, right? I actually remember back in the earlier episodes, I can't remember which one it was, we had talked about the relationship between Kaname and Arad before, and how Machina thought that there was a romantic connection between the two, and I actually dismissed her because it came from Machina, and she is like Machina is always trying to put two and two together like for everybody. Like
Yeah.
she's so obsessed with relationships, she just sees relationships everywhere. That's all there is. It's like, oh, there's romance here, romance there, romance everywhere. And so she reads into this stuff like more than is actually happening. And we've seen how she's been like dead wrong before. How she assumed that Mirage and Hayate were walking on the beach because of a relationship, and it turns out there was, at that point in the story, that was never in Hayate's mind. And for Mirage's part, sure, she wasn't passing up an opportunity to hang around with Hayate, but they were actually discussing something not related to them or a possible romance or anything. And so, Machina just got it completely wrong. And yeah, so I was thinking that was the same thing with Arad and Kaname. I said I'm pretty much sure that that's just Machina being Machina, and that there is no like real relationship, I think I said. And now we're getting a hint that there could be. There could be something there, right?
Yeah, or there should be.
There should be. All these people getting together.
Yeah, that song was perfect for it.
Yeah.
What's the name of the song, Celia? Did you like it?
It's called God Bless You, and I loved it. I like it better than Giraffe Blues for like a ballad for the show.
That was pretty good.
It was so good. And I feel like this show is doing a really good job pairing emotional moments with really good songs so far.
Yeah.
Like Axia by itself is pretty enjoyable, very J-poppy, but because of the emotional connection that it had in episode 9, I think it was 9 or 10,
Uh
then
huh.
I'm like, oh, this is the song. And now this one, where it's like the joy of Freya's birthday, but also the sadness of, I guess, missed opportunity, where Mirage is feeling like she's missed out on this chance with Hayate in this moment at least, and like Ard and Kaname kind of feel like that, where they have a missed opportunity that they're both kind of reluctant to act on anyways. And Mirage crying at the end while the song finishes during the final credits, and she's
Yeah.
asking, "Why am I doing this?" And I'm like, "Hun, just say it. Just say it to yourself. Like, I like him."
God, I just that whole sequence where Mirage is on her own, and we're
Hmm.
seeing her cry almost in profile. Like at the start, it's sort of like a face shot, but then afterwards, it sort of just goes to her profile. It just reminded me so much of Misa, just like sitting in the bar, drinking herself to tears.
It
Over,
was a coffee shop.
or was it a coffee shop?
Yeah,
Oh,
variations.
but yeah, just like like I said, just drinking herself into a good cry over a man who it seems impossible for her to tell him how she feels, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
just like so many, just the fact that they're both like extremely competent and professional, like and talented, like military women, who seem to like it seems like they would have everything together, right? But their personal life is such a goddamn mess. Absolutely. And it just, yeah, the two of them act out in similar ways, So yeah, I see a lot of parallels there. And yeah, this episode just reminded me so much of that.
Cool, and that's it. That's the entire show.
That's our episode. No battles, no mecha, no nothing. Just like,
What?
Just a lot of
100%,
feels.
just a lot of feels and character development. God, what is up with that? It's enough to make you start thinking this is a real show.
I feel like more people got hurt in this episode than
Yeah,
the
than
ones with the
most of the
battles.
combats.
So
Oh
true
my
though.
god, it's sad because it's true, right? So yeah, I liked the dialogue very much in this episode. Actually, it surprised me. Yeah, I loved it.
See, you guys complain too much. It's a good show.
Yeah, it's just all us, buddy. Just all us.
That's right. All right, let's go on to messages.
Yeah, speaking of complaints,
Speaking of complaints,
we got a lot of feedback on mass propulsion.
yeah, let's address the mass propulsion. We were getting a lot of gripes about us missing the whole mass propulsion thing.
People
Yeah.
try to come up with a rational explanation for what is a
To me,
blatant
it
use of
was
fan
good
service. But
enough.
yeah, I guess it's good enough. We'll go.
It's good enough for me.
Yeah,
That's what the writer intended. I'm fine with it,
yeah.
but I'm gonna stick to my guns and say it wasn't presented to where I think everybody got it.
Well, I don't think that's even the issue. I mean, like whether there's like, I mean, I like I said, I didn't even put much thought into it, and I was thinking like, yeah, I'm gonna, spend a while like trying to put some thought into what the reason was for this, but I just didn't even want to bother right at the time.
For
I
them
said so
stripping.
in the previous episode as well, right? And so I think this is one area where like, yeah, just because I was turned off by the blatant fan service, I just didn't even want to put any effort into actually thinking of a real legitimate reason for why they would do this. And, I think this message sort of deals with the fact that there is at least a semi plausible, legit reason for it.
What do you
Yeah,
think, Celia?
like, okay, so I'm gonna stick by my opinion that it was just a really dumb setup. And I could forgive a dumb setup if the fan service had more value to it than it was actually given to us. If it was exciting, or as Chad
Hmm.
put it in a past episode, if it was a titillating piece of fan service, then I could forgive the awkward setup. But because it wasn't that, and it was really just like one-sided embarrassment from Mirage with Hayate barking at her, so it really wasn't that great of a fan service moment anyways. Then it just made it seem worse. In the grand scheme of things, okay, it's really not that important that they used stripping clothes for mass propulsion to move. The reality is they probably didn't need to do that, but we had to have a setup for the fan service somehow. I just didn't like it, and that's cool. I mean, everyone else can like it if they do like it. I just didn't. And now we're done with it. I'm tired of talking about it.
It's done. Is there any other messages that?
Oh yeah, someone commented about how Neostream has been played before in a previous episode. Legend Fang did. And yes, Neostream was played in a previous episode, but at the time when they played Neostream in episode 14, the CD wasn't out yet. So unless you were listening to commercials in Japan and had exposure to the rest of the song, or you downloaded the leaked album, which I didn't because I was waiting for my pre-ordered copy, then you wouldn't know what the intro was. Like I recognized it once it went into the chorus from episode 8, but the rest of it sounded new. So, oh well, that's kind of a tiny nitpick though. Don't download
Cool.
leaked albums, kids.
Speaking of leaked albums, there's a question for you
Oh god.
about about the Knights
All
of
right.
Windermere.
Oh yeah, from Ali Drake. So where can I find the side manga about the Knights? I'm reading My Scans online. There isn't a complete tankobon for it yet because only 3 chapters are out. I actually don't think there'll be a full tankobon until at least chapter 5 or 6. So probably not until closer to November or December, probably.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, if you look around for it, you can find it.
Yeah, we're not allowed to give out links and downloads, so we're not going to. And good luck. And if you really want to find out more about it, check out your bookstores or CD Japan or Amazon.jp and look for
White Knights on Black Wings.
yeah, White Knights on Black Wings. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, you can probably, if you have a Kinokuniya in your area, Alley Night, you might be able to find it there when it comes out. They're pretty good at keeping up to date on recent manga releases.
Yeah, and it's in Japanese, so on that we can't help you.
Yeah, sorry. I wish I could divulge more, but not here.
All right, and that's it. That's our episode for this week. What's the name of the? Did we get a name for the next episode? Episode 17.
I didn't try to translate it this
We
time.
I don't think we. Oh, was there one?
Yeah, they had an episode title card at the end, but I didn't try to read it. There were too many kanji in it.
All right. Well, if anybody knows, you could. That's one thing you could message us, and we'll appreciate it. Let's wrap it up. Celia, where can we find you when you're not on the Macross Delta recap show?
You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Celia Rose Cosplay and on Twitter at Planets Twinkle. I actually have a con coming up in the next couple weeks, and I'll be wearing my Mikumo costume for the first time in public. So that'll
Cool.
be exciting.
We need pictures.
Oh, you'll have plenty of pictures. I'm gonna be at my friend's artist alley booth that day,
Cool.
and it's the day before I fly out to Japan. And I'll probably spend a lot of time taking pictures and maybe attempting live streaming, just depending on what traffic looks like. So,
Chad, where are you at?
You can contact me at via email at marchingcw@hotmail.com. You can also, of course, visit my website, the Macross Mecha Manual, and you can visit me on the Facebook website for the Macross Mecha Manual, which is facebook.com/Macross Mecha Manual. And lastly, you can find me at posting at various anime message boards, such as Anime Nation, ANN, and Macross World.
And this is EXO. You could find me on the Macross World Facebook page or the Macross Delta Facebook page. Or you could tweet at me at Macross Tweet, the official Macross World Twitter account. And thanks. See you next week.